My name's Dave Mesrey, and this is my hometown of Detroit. I'm going to take you on a tour around town and show you some memorable places in my life. Places you won't find on a tourist map. I'll tell you stories of my dysfunctional family, my growing up behind the counter of a 7-Eleven, my 13 years at Catholic school, and starting at age 5, going with my father to the racetrack where he gambled on the horses practically every day. We're not going to visit any museums or art houses or crack houses. This is just one man's history in the Motor City over the last 40 years. I'm standing here on DeQuinder Road, just south of 10 Mile in Hazel Park, Michigan. Behind me is Hazel Park Harness Raceway, which opened, I believe, in 1948, nearly 60 years ago. When I was a boy in the 1970s, my father used to bring me here all the time. He was a big gambler and loved to bet on the ponies, as he called them. Inside these gates in 1980, October of 1980, 27 years ago this month, something happened in there that would change my life forever. In the late 1970s, this was my home away from home, the 7-Eleven here at Harper and Shady Lane, between 8 and 9 Mile Roads in St. Clair Shores. Back then, my father was the manager of this 7-Eleven, and he would work the afternoon shift. So every day he would pick me up after school. About 3 o'clock he'd pick me up from Detroit, St. Matthews, and we would drive out here to St. Clair Shores where he worked the afternoon shift. And as a 9, 10, 11-year-old kid, this was where I spent the rest of my day. And I would do my homework in the back room. I would work the register. I knew how to work the register, and I could ring up anything except for beer sales. If someone wanted to buy beer, I'd have to summon my father from the back room where he was probably doing his paperwork to come out and ring up the beer sale. Also back then, in those days, the Slurpee counter the Slurpee machine was behind the counter. So the customers couldn't make their own Slurpees like they can today. They'd have to rely on my father and me. And back then you didn't have much choice. It was either usually just a Coke or a Mountain Dew, and that was it. And if you wanted to get fancy, you know, I could give you half Coke and half Mountain Dew. And my father also used this address, 21701 Harper, to get me in the St. Clair Shores Baseball League, because our neighborhood in Detroit wasn't so hot anymore. But as far as the coaches knew, I lived at 21701 Harper, which nobody checked to see was a 7-Eleven. And one other lasting memory I have of the 7-Eleven was my father would work till 11 p.m. most days, but if the person working the midnight shift didn't show up, you know, guess who had to cover? My father. And so on more than one occasion, as a 9, 10, 11-year-old boy, I stayed with my father until 7 o'clock the following morning when he got some relief. And, you know, I can still remember sitting on the hood of my father's car at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning and just looking out at the night sky and looking around and thinking, wow, I've never been up this late before. This is what it's like at 4 o'clock in the morning. And that was the late 1970s. And really, just even today, just standing in this parking lot brings back a rush of great memories for me of my childhood and my home away from home here at 7-Eleven. In the winter of 1983, I was 14 years old, and I was on the track team at Detroit St. Matthews. One day after school, my teammate Jeff Kazmierski and I jogged 3 miles here to Lake St. Clair. And it was March at the time, and the lake was still frozen over. Jeff was bigger than I was, and he thought it would be fun if I walked out on the ice for his amusement. And to convince me to do so, he picked up a big rock like one of these and tossed it out there. And when the ice didn't break, I felt obliged to walk out there so maybe Jeff wouldn't kick my ass. So no sooner had I walked out on the ice, of course, than I fell through. And I was up to my chest in the frozen waters of Lake St. Clair, kicking my legs around, but I couldn't feel the bottom and I couldn't pull myself out. So I yelled for Jeff, "Damn it, get out here and help." So he comes out, and after pulling for a minute, we're afraid that he's going to fall through the ice, but he managed to pull me to safety and save me from drowning, and then we had to walk 3 miles back to school, frozen to the bone. This is the Ambassador Bridge, which connects Detroit to Windsor, Ontario. Canada is just on the other side of the Detroit River. And here in Detroit, Canada is actually south of the United States. If you look on the map, you'll see Windsor sits just south of Detroit, whereas the rest of the country obviously is north of the United States. The bridge was built in 1929, I believe, and in the summer of 1988, I got a job here directing traffic and taking tolls. And when I would work in the toll booth, and I was 19 years old that summer, and when I worked in the toll booth, I'd see a lot of friends of mine from school or from the neighborhood coming across and paying their toll, which was $1.25 US, $1.50 Canadian, to go across and drink in the bars in Canada. The drinking age in Canada is 19, whereas here in Michigan, it's 21. Now, a lot of times they were going across to what we call the Windsor Ballet. And that's what they call all the strip clubs. There's a whole slew of them over there, strip clubs for men and for women. And sometimes I get a car full of women coming across, and when they would pay for their toll with a $20 bill and ask for their change in singles, I knew where they were going. They were going to the Windsor Ballet, and specifically they were going to an all-male strip club called Danny's.
That actually might work.
That might work. That's the best I can do.